Hey guys, this is part one where I'm going to be ranking all of the fantasy and historical TV series that I watched in 2024. So, I have been doing this particular ranking series for the last several years, and I really enjoy doing this. I don't really get a hell of a lot of views on this series, which is okay. I kind of really don't care. I'm really primarily doing this series for me, for my own personal entertainment, and if others get joy out of it, then great. Because, yeah, this is a really niche subject. So I'm combining historical fiction and fantasy TV series, and you either watch that kind of thing or you don't. So, yeah, let's get going, yeah, guys. I have a grand total of 34 TV series that are going to be part of this three-part series. So the first video is going to be uploaded today, the next video will be on Wednesday, and the final part, which will be the top 10, will be on Friday. So stick around if this is your sort of thing, and please share with me your favorite historical or fantasy TV series that you enjoyed in the year of 2024. So before I do get going, let's go over the rules, if you will, how videos are being decided in this particular series. First up, obviously, the TV series must be historical fiction or fantasy based. I am including fantasy in this series because oftentimes fantasy has a very historical-like aesthetic to it. Second, the series must be set before the year 2000. Contemporary shows may be included as long as they have one of the following: A time travel element, B, flashbacks that are pivotal to the plot, C, dual or multi-narratives that take place prior to the year 2000. Third, this list will include shows that premiered in the year of 2024, but the list may also have shows that are older that this is my first time watching them. And last, this ranking is meant to be fun. It is based off of my personal enjoyment and my level of engagement with each of these series. So, all of that being said, let's get going. At number 34, Eric. Set in 1980s Manhattan, following Vincent, a grief-stricken father whose son Edgar goes missing, finding solace through his friendship with Eric, the monster that Edgar has created. Starring Benedict Cumberbatch. Well, something has to go at the bottom of this list, you guys, and that is going to be this Benedict Cumberbatch TV series, Eric, that aired on Netflix kind of maybe about halfway through the year, if I'm not mistaken. There was nothing particularly really bad about this show. It was fine for what it was. I did like it. I enjoyed Benedict Cumberbatch's performance. I liked the whole conceit of this show. I think it's just one of those shows of 2024 that it's not going to be memorable. You know, when I think of this year, this show is not going to be one of those shows that I think about. But I did. I thought this was a really lovely, kind of heartwarming sort of show. Yeah, Benedict Cumberbatch's character just trying to search and look for his missing son. Is he alive? Is he dead? What's going on? And it's just about this character's his journey through grief and trying to find some sort of forgiveness because he feels like his son's disappearance is his fault. And yeah, one of the best things about this show, Benedict Cumberbatch, not only is he performing in this as himself, but the monster, if you will, because his character, Benedict Cumberbatch's character, he works at like a puppet company where they have like a TV show, you know, something like Sesame Street, and he's like a puppeteer, and his son has created like a drawing of a puppet, a possible puppet for the show, and it's like kind of this monster looking thing, and the monster is called Eric. And so Benedict Cumberbatch is also voicing this puppet named Eric, and it kind of made me think of him when he voiced Smaug in the Hobbit movies. The voice kind of sounds fairly similar. But yeah, this was a cute show for what it was. I liked it. At 33, The Tattooist of Auschwitz. follows Leo Sokolov, a Jewish prisoner who is tasked with tattooing ID numbers on prisoners' arms in the Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp during World War II. Starring Jonah Hauer-King, Anna Prochniak, Melanie Linsky, and Harvey Keitel. I have a feeling some people might be a little bit upset with me for ranking The Tattooist of Auschwitz so incredibly low on this list, but let me explain my feelings for the show, you guys, because I kind of didn't really like this show as much as I was anticipating. I have yet to read the book, but I'm excited to read the book because I've heard nothing but good things about the book, and I think this is going to be one of those cases where the book is far better than its adaptation. I just don't know what it was about this miniseries that was not working for me, unfortunately. I don't I don't know if it just, to me, it came across overly pretentious, and that's not a good thing. And there was something about the directing choices. I did not like some of the directing choices that were taken. There were just some really strange editing choices. I just didn't get it. There was a lot about this miniseries I did not entirely understand or get what they were trying to go for. When it's like, just let the narrative play out. Let the narrative play out and let it be. I think this miniseries was trying to take some risks and chances that didn't really entirely work for me, because I was very much highly looking forward to this miniseries. I was very incredibly excited for it. And boy, oh boy, did it kind of let me down, and I kind of really did not like it that much, which is a shame because the content matter that was depicted in this miniseries, it is based off of a true story. It's based off of true events, obviously. It's based off on real people. So it's a shame that I felt the way I felt about it, considering that it is, very much real. It is historical fact. But yeah, oh yeah. No. This miniseries just did not cut it for me. At number 32, The Completely Made Up Adventures of Dick Turpin. Infamous highwayman Dick Turpin becomes a reluctant leader of a gang of rogues, setting out on a series of wild adventures, all while trying to outwit the corrupt lawman and thief-taker Jonathan Wild. Starring Noel Fielding and Hugh Bonneville. Well, this was an odd, fun joyride. I had literally heard about this miniseries like a couple days before the show premiered, and I kind of gravitated towards Hugh Bonneville because I love Hugh Bonneville from like Downton Abbey. So I was like, oh, Hugh Bonneville's in this, let me go check it out. And I wasn't expecting this show to be as comedic as it was. It's like a 30-minute comedy show, following the real historical figure of Dick Turpin. But this is like a really romanticized look at Dick Turpin, and just again, really highly romanticized and really extravagant and exaggerated look at his life. So yeah, even though Dick Turpin was a real historical figure, there's pretty much nothing else in the series that is historically accurate. It's all just meant to be fun, and it's taking inspiration. And yeah, just during this time period, highwaymen and the highway robberies were a big, huge thing. So this is just a really exaggerated look at that, and a really highly comedic, satirical look at that. And I had a blast watching this show. It was pretty fun. Some of the episodes, there were a few hit or miss episodes in there. Some of the humor fell a little flat on occasion, but in general, the show worked for me. At number 31, The Decameron. In 1348, as the Black Death strikes in the city of Florence, a handful of nobles are invited to a retreat in the Italian countryside to wait out the pestilence with a lavish holiday. But as social rules wear thin, what starts as a wine-soaked sex romp in the hills of Tuscany descends into an all-out scramble for survival. Starring Tanya Reynolds, Zozoa Mamet, and Tony Hale. Just like the completely made-up adventures of Dick Turpin that preceded The Decameron here on this list, I found The Decameron to be another really highly fun, enjoyable show. It has a very, very low score on IMDb, which is kind of a shame because I don't think it's that bad. I had a blast watching this show. The humor in the show really worked for me, especially me being a historical fiction nerd. Just a lot of the humor absolutely just made me laugh out loud. Yes, there's a lot of ignorance and innuendo going on in this show, but I liked the show for what it was, and drawing a lot of inspiration off of Boccaccio, right? Boccaccio, that guy. Boccaccio is the Decameron, which is like a series of 100 short stories and whatnot. So this show is definitely taking inspiration. It's telling much more of a linear story that all ties in together. It's not like standalone episodes. The entire cast carries through. So it's not entirely like the Decameron short stories collection. Like I said, much more inspiration taken from that. But I like the whole premise of this show. All of these just bored rich people with rich people problems. They think that they're unstoppable and unbeatable, and that they can live forever just because of their wealth and privilege. And so they head out into the countryside trying to escape the Black Death, which obviously, how the hell is that going to happen? And so of course the Black Death kind of does catch up. It's still very much present, and this show it's a highly comedic and satirical look into like the Black Death and Renaissance Italy and everything. Yeah, the show is a lot more funny than I kind of was anticipating it to be, but it was my type of humor and I liked it. At number 30, Joan follows jewel thief Joan Hannington, who is trying to get her daughter back from social services and teams up with a shady antiques dealer. Starring Sophie Turner and Frank Delane. If there was ever a match made in heaven, it was that between Frank Delane and Sophie Turner. My God, I loved these two in this show. Woo, they were magnificent. The show itself, I liked the show. I think there were some episodes that were a little bit slower for me because I just wanted the pace to pick up. The pacing was kind of a little slow for me, considering this is about, real life people, because it's set in is it the 80s? I think it's the 80s. I think it's the 80s. I can't quite remember. I believe this show takes place in the 80s. And yeah, these are real historical people, and they were real jewel thieves committing all these wild and crazy crimes. So you would think it'd be a little bit more exciting, and some of the episodes were pretty exciting, but then some of them weren't. They were kind of a little bit more stale. But yeah, I definitely recommend watching this show for Sophie Turner and Frank Delane's performances and their chemistry alone. That was just well worth it for me. And yeah, like Sophie Turner especially, it was nice to see her in this really grown up and mature role. And yeah, it's a shame she's not getting more recognition for it, because this was just a perfect role for her, especially coming out of Game of Thrones and kind of some of these other more obscure things she's been getting. At number 29, Vikings Valhalla Season 3. With our heroes scattered across the globe, Leif in Constantinople, Freydis in Jomsburg, and Harold on the run, they navigate new challenges and forge new alliances. Starring Leo Surter, Frida Gustafsson, and Sam Corlett. This is probably going to be another one on this list that people might get a little upset with me that it's ranked so low on this list. Vikings Season 3, I have just been absolutely loving this show. And then for whatever reason, Season 3 just did not entirely work for me. And this is the last season of the show. And for me, this did not feel like a final season. The final episode aired, and it just felt like there were still more adventures to go on with these characters, and it just felt abrupt. The ending of the show felt abrupt. It didn't really feel like a series finale whatsoever, and if anything, I felt really frustrated with the whole ending. And for another thing, your three main characters, they're all separated this season, and that didn't really work for me, because I think what works about this show is that your core group of characters are all together. That chemistry that ties them all together. And so this season, they were all separated, they're all scattered across the globe, and it made the whole narrative of the season feel really disjointed and a weird pace, because someone's story would kind of be moving along quicker, but then someone else's would be moving much slower because of how much they had in their particular arc. They couldn't move too quickly because you have to build it to like the final episode where everyone's stories, the pacing is kind of evened out, and everything that needs to reach certain climaxes, it all meshes together, if that makes any sort of sense. So I found this final season of Vikings Valhalla to be frustrating, disappointing, especially after the remarkable first two seasons of this show. At number 28, Dalgleish Season 3. Set in 1979, Adam Dalgleish investigates the murders of a senior churchman holding secrets, a maid serving an affluent family, and a serial killer who is targeting women who work at a nuclear power plant. Starring Bertie Carvel. I am an absolute sucker for this show, yeah, guys. It may not be everyone's sort of cup of tea, but I'm totally here for it. I'm here for Bertie Carvel. He's just a wonderful looking man to look at. My God, he is Adam Dalgleish. Okay, so yeah, this particular season we're in 1979. We got the cars, the hair, the clothing. It's wonderful. And 3 more adventures. What I love about this show is that there's 6 episodes, and they're based off of a series of books by P.D. James, and so each season is 6 episodes focusing on 3 different books, and each book gets like 2 episodes, and I like that you can kind of watch these episodes and binge like 2 episodes at a time every week, because 2 episodes drop every single week on Acorn TV. So I like the format that Acorn TV has with Dalgleish, with the 6 episodes, 2 being released at a time, you know, each based off of a book. So you're kind of watching like a little mini hour-and-a-half movie each week, and I kind of really like that. And yeah, the particular installments this time around I really enjoyed. The very first one that dealt with like a senior churchman who's hiding some deep dark secrets and stuff, I really liked that one. And then yeah, the second one about a maid who winds up dead in this wealthy family's home, that one I liked, but it was a bit more slow and boring for me. And then I did really like the third one about a serial killer who was possibly targeting women working at a nuclear power plant. So yeah, the first 2 episodes and the last 2 episodes I think were definitely the big highlights, and they worked the best for me, with the middle kind of being a little slow. But either way, Bertie Carvel, a remarkable performance all the time. I love how he plays Adam Dalgleish, because Dalgleish is just really calm and rational, and yeah, he lets people do the speaking. You know, he does a lot of the listening while he lets other people do the speaking, and he kind of figures out clues from there. I love his style of like investigating. At number 27, Miss Scarlet and the Duke, Season 4. Eliza is now the lead detective at Nash & Sons, but faces obstacles that challenge her authority. In the meantime, her relationship with Inspector Wellington reaches a point where decisions must be made that will affect both of their lives. Starring Kate Phillips and Stuart Martin. Well, here's the unfortunate news about Miss Scarlet and the Duke. As we head into the next season, Season 5, it will no longer be called Miss Scarlet and the Duke. It's going to be simply called Miss Scarlet, because I guess a minor spoiler alert here if you've never seen this show, but for God's sake, it's Season 4. If you've not gotten around to it at this point, I don't know when else you will. Yeah, the Duke half of Miss Scarlet and the Duke half, he decided to leave the show rather abruptly in some ways. And yeah, the show, when we get Season 5 here in January, I believe, it's just going to be called Miss Scarlet. And I'm a little sad, I'm a little sad that the Duke left. But I love Miss Scarlet as a character. Eliza Scarlet is just such a wonderful, rich heroine. Yeah, Kate Phillips plays Eliza Scarlet with just such energy and spunk. I love her to death. And yeah, this particular season, it had slower moments, but there were definitely some really spectacular episodes in there, just extreme highlights. And I'm definitely going to miss that relationship between Eliza and Inspector Wellington. It will definitely be sorely missed, but I'm really hoping Nash, he's another male lead of this show. I really hope Nash's role gets expanded, because I love him just as much as Inspector Wellington. At number 26, The New Look explores the rise of fashion designer Christian Dior as he dethrones Coco Chanel, starring Ben Mendelsohn, Juliette Binoche, and Maisie Williams. This is another show that aired in 2024 that I didn't even find out about until a couple weeks before the show actually aired, and I'm really glad I took the chance to watch this show, because it ended up being a pleasant surprise. This is a show that looks into the world of the fashion business, the fashion industry, but the thing is, what really intrigued me and hooked me was the aspect that it took place during World War II, and then kind of the aftermath of World War II. And quite honestly, I didn't know that Christian Dior and Coco Chanel, I didn't know their history in World War II, to be quite honest. It's like I know about them in name, obviously. They're huge fashion designers and, perfume and clothing and all that stuff. So it's like I know about them in name, obviously, but I've never thought about them in a deeper historical context. So I love the fact that this show is set primarily during World War II and the kind of the immediate aftermath of that. And yeah, the roles that Coco Chanel and Christian Dior have during and after the war, the choices and risks that they take during the war, and the yeah, focusing on their weaknesses and vulnerabilities, but what their strengths are, just some really shocking things that I did not know about, you guys. And yeah, don't really want to even talk about it because it's like it's best to just learn about it while watching the show. And yeah, like one of the big things that I loved about the show, there's a whole big subplot with Maisie Williams, who plays Christian Dior's sister in the show, played by Ben Mendelsohn. Yeah, there's this whole thing where Maisie Williams's character, she gets captured by the Nazis and she's tortured, and yeah, she has PTSD afterwards, and yeah, her trying to kind of come out of that after the war. There's just this whole thing with Christian Dior's sister that I had no idea about because she was part of like a real life resistance movement, which is like badass. But yeah, the performances in this were pretty wonderful. I really loved Ben Mendelsohn's performance. It's just really quiet and subtle, and yet Juliette Binoche as Coco Chanel, good lord, she's just really over the top sometimes, but I really loved that energy that she brought to it. And yeah, Maisie Williams, wow, seriously, I freaking loved Maisie Williams' performance in this. She is so much more than Arya Stark on Game of Thrones, you guys, and she proves it here. At number 25, Shardlake. During the dissolution of the monasteries in the Tudor era, Matthew Shardlake is sent by Thomas Cromwell to investigate the death of a commissioner in the remote town of Scarnsey, starring Arthur Hughes, Anthony Boyle, and Sean Bean. This is one of those shows that I was anticipating with a great passion, yeah, guys, and I really enjoyed this show, and I'm really hoping that we get a second season because this is based off of a series of books by C.J. Sansom, and I've read several of the books in the series and I love them to bits. So I'm really, really secretly hoping that this gets picked up for multiple seasons. Yeah, I'm a sucker for anything that takes place during the Tudor era. Okay, and yeah, the character of Matthew Shardlake, as played by Arthur Hughes in this show. Matthew Shardlake is just such a fascinating, rich character. He has a disability. He's very intelligent. He idolizes Thomas Cromwell, which he probably shouldn't. Yeah, he's such a really interesting, deep character that there's so many layers that can be explored with him as if the series continues on and whatnot. Yeah, I just want to see the books adapted because I love these books, okay? And yeah, the mystery, the murder mystery element of this series, it may be fairly predictable. It's kind of one of those things that's fairly predictable, and it might not be the most exciting, but I think the show did a really wonderful job with the murder mystery element of this and still making it thrilling and exciting in its own way, because even though I had read this book, there were still elements that I couldn't quite remember. At number 24, Citadel, Honey Bunny. Years after stuntman Bunny recruited struggling actress Honey for a side gig, their dangerous past catches up with them, forcing the estranged couple to reunite and protect their daughter. Starring Samantha Ruth Prabhu and Varun Dhawan. So if you can't tell from the title of this show, it is part of the Citadel universe that is on Amazon Prime. Currently, there are 3 shows in the Citadel universe. There is the main show, Citadel, and that stars Richard Madden and Priyanka Chopra. And then there is the second show in this series, and that's called Citadel Diana, and that stars Matilda de Angelis, and that one is a contemporary show, so that's why that one's not making the list. So yeah, this third one, Citadel Honey Bunny, I was not aware that this was going to be kind of a sort of historical and contemporary type show, because a huge chunk of this show, not only does a huge chunk of it take place like in the modern era, like past the year 2000, but a huge chunk of it takes place during the early 1990s, which I was not aware of. So I was pretty shocked when I was like, oh, I'm going to have to add this to my list because I was not anticipating that. But yeah, Citadel Honey Bunny, this was a absolute pleasant surprise. you guys. I freaking love this show. Out of all three Citadel shows in this universe, Honey Bunny is definitely my favorite, and then probably followed by Diana, and then the original main show with Richard Madden. Yeah, Honey Bunny. It all takes place in India. It is just so wild and so extravagant and so spectacular. It has this wonderful kind of almost Bollywood flair to it. Like, no one bursts out into song, but it still has this kind of Bollywood flair to it, and it's just full of joy and fun. And yeah, people running around. Seriously, the action sequences in this show alone are incredibly well worth it to watch this show. The action sequences are just so well executed and put together, and it's so thrilling and exciting, you guys. I was seriously just amazed with how much I enjoyed this particular installment of the universe, because I went into it thinking I wouldn't like it that much, but wow, it ended up being my favorite of all three of the series so far. And yeah, if you've not watched any of the Citadel shows, I don't think you necessarily have to watch all of them. It would help if you did watch all of them, but if you wanted a nice place to start, I would definitely just recommend watching Honey Bunny for the hell of it, for sheer entertainment alone. At number 23, Renegade Nell. A quick-witted and courageous young woman framed for murder unexpectedly becomes the most notorious outlaw in 18th century England, starring Louisa Harland and Jolie Richardson. This aired on Disney Plus earlier in the year, and quite honestly, I didn't have too many expectations for this show, because I heard Disney Plus and historical fiction, and I was like, this is sure to go all sorts of bad and badly wrong. And I ended up being very pleasantly surprised with this show, you guys. But I think the one downside of this show, because there is a bit of a fantasy kind of element to the show, because the main young woman in the show, Nell, she gets these mysterious, strange powers from like this little fairy creature. This little fairy creature can like go in her, and she gets like super strength and super speed, and just really good abilities, and she can fight people all of a sudden. So that was the one element of the show that didn't really work for me, was the fantasy element. But as far as the historical element of the show goes, because it takes place in 18th century England, like I said, I freaking loved that element of the show. I loved the costuming of the show. I loved the acting. I loved the directing. I was just really pleasantly surprised with a historical show on Disney Plus. Okay, let's be real. Like I said, I really thought it was going to go terribly bad and it wouldn't work, but it genuinely worked for me, other than the fantasy elements, because I wish that had been written out, because the show is definitely exploring a lot during this time period. Definitely the class divide during the period between the wealthy and the poor. And yet Nell's character, because she is framed for murder in like the first episode of this show, she's framed for murder. She has to become a highway woman, and she does it for her own reasons, to help out herself and to help out her family, but also to help those in need around her. It's not so much for herself. So the show is definitely doing some really good exploration into the time period and the class struggle. And I really freaking loved this show, and it got canceled, unfortunately. Boo-hoo. At number 22, Avatar: The Last Airbender follows the adventures of Aang, the Last Airbender, and his friends as they fight to save the world by defeating the Fire Nation. Starring Gordon Cormier, Kia Wintio, Ian Owsley, Dallas Liu, and Daniel Day Kim. Hallelujah! We finally got an appropriate adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Hell yes. Now, I will put this on record. I was fine with M. Night Shyamalan's movie adaptation. It was okay. I liked it. I mean, I was totally there for Dev Patel. Okay, let's be real. Dev Patel was the movie. So I was okay with the movie. So I was still very much looking forward to this TV series adaptation over on Netflix, because we were going to have more episodes. It was going to be able to go into more depth with certain things, more than a movie could. And it definitely improved way more than the movie. Let's be real. The special effects were way better than the movie. I think the acting was way better than the movie, other than Dev Patel, because once again, Dev Patel was the movie. He was the best thing about the Avatar movie. But yeah, there was a lot about this TV show that was way better than the movie, obviously. And either way, I'm very much looking forward to season 2 and 3 of this show. I can't wait. And a lot of people had a lot of issues with how this particular season was adapted, there was a lot that didn't really particularly bother me. There were a couple things that bothered me, but not to the point that I was irritated or aggravated, you know. Either way, I was still excited to watch the show, and I think it was successful for the most part. And at number 21, Rivals follows Rupert Campbell Black and Tony Battingham as their long-standing rivalry finally comes to a head, starring Alex Hassel, Aidan Turner, and David Tennant. That is a very basic plot synopsis for this show. I mean, that's all IMDb had as the synopsis. All of my synopsises, for the most part, I just kind of rip from IMDb because I'm terrible at summarizing shows on my own. But yeah, that's kind of a shame. That's all the summary is. I'm not quite sure what else I would add to it because it sounds kind of boring, just me reading it off like that. Rivals, I have been anticipating the show for quite a while before it even aired because I was immediately drawn to the fact that Aidan Turner and David Tennant had been cast in this show. That was the primary reason I was watching this show, because I wasn't even aware that this was based off of a book series. You guys, apparently it's a very popular book series. I had no idea. I've never heard of these books before in my life. But yeah, I like this show. It takes place in the 80s, so there's a bit of flamboyance to it and yeah, extravagance. It's following a bunch of wealthy British people, okay? And it's this whole rivalry that happens between two rival, like, I guess TV studios, studio companies, something like that. And yeah, you have David Tennant on one end and Aidan Turner on the other. And yeah, Alex Hassel kind of there in the middle, have to pick a side, which you kind of figure he's going to go to one side over the other. But I like this show. It was really fun. Yeah, it's like the best way to describe the show. I think when I did my review for it, it's like Bridgerton, but for middle-aged people. Okay, let's put it that way. And I kind of like that. So yeah, it's full of like sex, drugs, and rock and roll, if you will. It's that sort of thing. There's a lot of nudity, there's a lot of sex, there's a lot of lying and betrayal and bored housewives. It was kind of crazy. So you guys, that is it for part 1 of my ranking of all of the historical and fantasy TV series that I watched in 2024. Like I said, come back on Wednesday to watch part 2. And as you're watching these videos, just leave your thoughts about how you feel about this ranking. If some of these shows you're like, oh my god, why did you put this down so low? Vent out your frustrations down below. So that is it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye guys.